apologies for the late start this evening. I was unavoidably held up, but yeah, it'd be good if we can try and actually start the class at 6:30. We'll make some effort to do that in future. So once the mind and body are settled and calm, spend a little time meditating on bodhicitta. the space in front of you. At the place where the Buddha statue is. Visualize your root guru in the form of Shakyamuni Buddha. Appearing in a body of golden light, seated in the Vajra position of meditation, wearing the 3 robes of a monk. Left hand holding a golden bowl full of nectar, right hand touching the ground, seated on a white moon cushion, red sun cushion, multicoloured lotus, a jewelled throne supported by 8 lions. The embodiment of all 3 jewels of refuge, all the Buddhas, all Dharma, and all Sangha. His mind is pure, limitless compassion, united with perfect wisdom. Through his kindness, we are actually able to follow the Mahayana path all the way to full enlightenment, and thereby to truly help all suffering sentient beings throughout samsara. Therefore, he is our only source of ultimate refuge. I'm using the word he because the Guru is appearing in a male form, but of course the enlightened mind has no gender. And so strongly think, without the help of my Guru, without the help of the 3 jewels, I cannot help other sentient beings as they need. I cannot lead them to full enlightenment, since in order to do that I need to become enlightened myself. Therefore, from my heart, I will place my trust in the Guru and the 3 jewels, who alone have the ability to lead me to complete enlightenment. So please meditate on this thought of Mahayana refuge, taking refuge in the 3 jewels, motivated by compassion, for all sentient beings. Refuge prayer, page 22. Sorry, 20.
Soki Chonama Janchu Badu Dani Kyam Suche Dagi Chanyan Ki Pe Sonam Ki Droga Penche Sange Drupa soki chonama Chanchu padu dami kyam suje Dagi chenyen ki pe sonam ki Chola panche sangye rupajo Sangye chudan soki chonama Chanchu padu dami kyam suje Dagi chenyen ki pe sonam ki Chola panche sangye rupajo.
And our offering, recited. Sajibagi Chukjimedo Tramri Rabringi Nidegen Vali Zangye Jingdu Mekte Uwali Dokunam Dajinam Trabajo Vidam Guranamandala Kandiyatayami. Heart Sutra. Thank you. Thus did I hear at one time the Bhagavans dwelling on Master Vulture's mountain in Rajagriha, together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagavan was absorbed in the concentration on the categories of phenomena called profound perception. Also at that time, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom and beheld those five aggregates also as empty and inherent nature. Then, through the power of the Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara: how should any son of the lineage train who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom? He said that, and the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara said this to the Venerable Shariputra: Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom should look upon it like this, correctly and repeatedly beholding those five aggregates also as empty and inherent nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form, emptiness is not other than form, form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise all phenomena are emptiness, without a characteristic, unproduced, unstained, unsustainers, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no odour, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomenon. There is no I element, and so on, up to and including no mind element, and no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so on, up to and including no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and dwell in the perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration and without fear. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the end point of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times also manifestly completely awaken to unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment and reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequaled, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, should be known as truth since it is not false. the mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared.
Tayata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhisoha.
Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan arose from that concentration and commended the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage. It is like that. It is like that. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom just as you have indicated. Even the Tathagatas rejoice. The Bhagavan, having thus spoken, the Venerable Charipatiputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, those surrounding in their entirety, along with the world of gods, humans, asuras and Gandharvas, all overjoyed and highly praised that spoken by the Bhagavan. All of the surrounding assembly dissolves into Buddha. The throne, lotus, sun, moon, cushion, all dissolve into him. He comes towards you, turns round, comes to rest on the crown of your head. Strongly feel his actual presence. Guru Shakyamuni Buddha dissolves into golden light, which flows down your central channel to your heart. Cleansing and purifying your mental and physical aggregates. You receive the blessings of the Guru's holy mind. Your body becomes very light and pure, like crystal, and your mind merges with Guru Shakyamuni Buddha's holy mind, Dharmakaya. Abiding in tranquil bliss, absorbed in contemplation of the emptiness of inherent existence of all phenomena. Just pure awareness, aware of itself. And gently relax your concentration and bring the meditation to an end. So what goes on when you meditate on bodhicitta? I'd like to give a report from the front on that one. I think I really think it's useful for us to share because, we read all these deep books and we hear the teachings, and this is the theory. What's it really like? What's going on for you when you meditate or attempt to meditate on bodhicitta?
To be honest, I find it quite difficult, and then any effects that it does happen, it's usually happening not in any sitting session at all.
Yes.
So like a day-to-day event or something will happen, or hear some news, or there was an incident near me at work, so they found a body on the road just north of where I work. And I was like, wow.
Yeah, that's a wake-up call.
They'll immediately come out, and I thought, wow, crazy. Like, I wish I wasn't, like strong, compassionate feeling. And then I thought it would be great to have that. And I was sat there going, this is sort of working in a fabricated manner. And then, there you go.
So let me ask a question about that. Do you think there's a connection? Do you notice a connection? There might be a connection between the meditation that appears not to be working and the subsequent experience when the compassion seems to arise quite by itself. Something to think about.
Yes.
Anyway. Because, that's been my observation, with bodhicitta or compassion, but with meditation generally, that often in the session nothing appears to be happening. And then quite often I've noticed later on, the same day or a day or two later, I had this experience. It seemed to have come from nowhere.
Yeah.
And realised, how long? I was meditating on that.
Yeah. All you want is, you come across something and then you want to, stop the suffering.
Yeah.
So I found loads of wasps trapped because of my job. I always come across creatures and things.
Yeah.
I found loads of wasps trapped in the toilet.
Right.
And they were all around. I don't know how they got in there, but they were around the window, and it was all kind of a bit crazy. And one of them went into the bowl of the loo, right? So immediately I just fished it out. There was nothing untoward in there. And I did wash my hands after.
Still.
Yeah. I was like, and then sorted them all out, and then picked them all, put them out the window or whatever. But but I just sort of did it, I didn't think, I should do this. Or,
yeah.
Oh God, that's really bad. You immediately want to do something about it.
Yes. I mean, you could have gone in there in a different state of mind and not had that.
Yeah, that's true.
And what I'm kind of wanting to flag up is a possibility that it has got something to do with the fact that you have been doing that meditation. I mean, it's difficult to be sure about that, but I think if we observe and kind of keep that thought in mind, because that's obviously going to give us some motivation.
Yeah.
If we keep thinking I'm getting nowhere, in your sitting, this wonderful compassion isn't happening. But if it is happening at some other time, it can make it feel a lot more. There's a lot more point in doing it, because what the danger is, we feel, well, it isn't working, and we lose faith, we lose motivation, we think maybe I should be doing something else. Now, I don't know whether that's the case or not. There might be a quicker way, but I know this way has been tried and tested for thousands of years, and it works. It does work, and it is clearly understood. It takes time, but if we can kind of make a connection there, it can help to motivate. Because I think we are only humans. We need something. You know, we need to kind of get a taste of something to get that energy to be willing to do it, don't we? So I just have a lot. I mean, I'm not kind of, you know, saying, you know, you should believe that, but have a look and see, because I think if we investigate and look, we can get more of a set clarity in the sense. Oh yeah, it's making a difference when I do meditate on it over a period of time, because it only does work over a period of time. It doesn't work in the moment. It's not like instant coffee, as I keep saying. It isn't like that. But, you know, real coffee's better than instant coffee. Yeah, well, thank you, Adam.
That's all right.
This is the real stuff, you know. This is the nitty gritty, isn't it? This is what it's all about. Yeah, yeah.
Well, that's Dharma in action, isn't it? It's just
Yeah,
just Dharma
absolutely, absolutely. Anyone else? Any other experiences or flashes of insight or or anything of that
I think,
nature?
as Adam
Or
says,
questions?
you do experience that
Mm-hmm.
in daily life. You know, things crop up, you read things, you see things.
Yeah.
I tend to try and avert myself from suffering, and when I see negative and upsetting things,
Yeah.
whereas previously maybe I'd dig into it a little bit and read and see what the news is about that. I find myself now avoiding it because I feel it. I feel it, man. I'm not just saying that's from a down perspective, but from, I don't know whether it's a mature thing or whatever.
Yeah.
As you get older, you see things differently. But certainly when you become a parent, you see things differently.
Sure.
I think you develop these new genes, these parent genes that you didn't have before.
Yeah, could be.
That make you feel things differently.
Yeah.
And especially with little Ruby, the granddaughter now, you know, you can see how small and innocent she is. And the thought of anything negative happening, when you see things in the world, I just avert myself from it because I don't want to see it. Now, yeah, that's a good thing and a bad thing, actually.
I mean, that's a very good question, Bob, because I think it's a bit of both.
Mm.
You know, the way that it's thrown at us on the TV news or in the newspapers is, I think, most in general, it's pretty bad for our mind because, I mean, it's possible to respond to it with authentic compassion, but generally the way it's presented is, it's not compassionate. It's not presented in a compassionate way. I mean, it's supposed to be, and I think the people making the news, they think it's a sort of compassion, that they're telling us about these terrible things that happen in the world. But generally the message is like, isn't it awful, all these poor people far away, we can't do anything about it, and it's like, it's just happening, not really any kind of authentic story about why it's happening very often. And it just makes people depressed. So, yes, we do need to be willing to sort of open our heart and mind to suffering, but how do we do it in a skillful way that isn't just creating more negativity within us? So I think that's quite important.
I think if you're seeing situations in real life that people are suffering, though, like you with your wasps, and you seeing it with creatures and everything, then it comes out more automatic, the compassion.
Of course, yeah.
The more you see, doesn't it?
When it is like sort of in that somewhat artificial situation, you know, here it's coming into your room through the TV set.
Yeah, but if
and these
it's
people are
real
thousands of
life,
miles
I
away,
mean.
it's difficult to make a genuine connection with it.
If you see pictures, though, then that's different. You do feel the compassion then, don't you? If
Sometimes
you're actually seeing newsreels of people that are suffering, then you get the compassion.
That's weird. Oh, I can't remember his name now. The chap that did all the Moors murders.
Yeah, really,
Brian
yeah.
Gray.
Well, he just died, didn't he?
Yeah.
And that's the thing about in his will about wanting his ashes scattered on the moor. And obviously, you know, it's terrible and all what they did and everything. But to just think that the amount of suffering, like, well, the mental state that he must have sort of been in, and that's to have that in your will at the end of your life still, or what sort of mental
Strange.
state, and the karma and everything, this amount of
The karma, yeah.
is going to be absolutely just atrociously awful, that situation. It's not like
Certainly
there was
quite
any-
a good example of
didn't seem
somebody
to be
who-
any repentance or
No,
anything,
no,
any-
absolutely
any
not.
shift away from, and that's just
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very,
but it's always presented
very
in a
dark.
really one-sided manner, isn't it? Like there's the tabloid paper saying he was a monster and all that, whichever, the usual sorts of things from the tabloid press. Just think that, like all facets of that situation are just so incredibly, painful.
Yeah, I mean that's a good example of somebody, because I was talking last night about in New York about karma and rebirth, mainly rebirth, and there's this big cultural barrier to overcome about the 6 realms, and the way I always talk about it is, well, okay, the sort of physical images that you see in the Wheel of Life and so on. Yeah, that's maybe some cultural thing, but there is a there's a validity to it in terms of those images and those stories about those 6 realms. They reflect a reality about the mind. They represent different states of mind, and they represent the karmic consequences of different states of mind. And you think about the karmic consequences of the state of mind of somebody like that, who, as you say, for 50 years had kind of revelled in the fact of the horrible things that he'd done, and even when he died, had no repentance. Where is that? If this karmic process is continuing, what is that going to end in? To me, it can't be anything else. He's going to be suffering for a very, very, very long time as a result of that mental disease, actually. In terms of the sort of usual categories of mental disease, he's sane. I mean, he's rational, he's able to think rationally, but the absence of a shred of compassion, which is what psychopathy, what it is, there's that function of the mind is missing, and the consequences are terrible. How do we get away with suffering? Thinking about suffering, yeah. So the way that's presented is, well, this person just deserves to suffer, and he didn't suffer enough, and if people think about how that's, well, God will punish him, and he deserves it. So there's no compassion there, and there's a lot of the time, I think, in the presentation of suffering in the popular media, there isn't any real compassion. I mean, there's very superficial compassion. Oh, they're starving, let's give them some food, but there's not. Because compassion has to do with identifying with the other person, doesn't it? And that's what I think is missing in the TV news. It's like, oh, these kind of, these brown people somewhere in Africa, they're separated, they're presented in a way they're completely separate from you, and you can help them by giving some money, then they can have some food. And it doesn't, the connection between you and them is not a real human connection. It's a kind of. So.
Yeah, I think there's difference between pity and compassion.
There is.
Yeah.
That's right.
And it could be easy to slip into pity.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
But the bodhicitta motivation, is to bring all beings. That's inclusive of everybody that is denounced as horrible to enlighten.
Absolutely.
And equally, regarding everybody, cultivating equanimity and things like that.
Yeah.
So actually, it's an immensely vast concept.
It is very vast, and I think we can get a little bit sort of sidetracked by seeing. Well. No, I mean, in what way is it vast? That's the important thing. It's like not that you have to kind of
challenging.
Develop some extraordinary power of imagination to imagine hundreds of millions of beings all at the same time and all of their different suffering. The point is that compassion is unconditional and non-discriminating. So it's whatever. So if it's Ian Brady, you have the same compassion, as towards the victim. Why? Because that compassion is based on recognizing that there's no essential difference between me and him. And the way it's presented in the media is that this guy is absolutely not the same as me. He's totally different. He's a devil. I'm not. I'm okay. And so it is the inherent existence that is the problem. It is the portrayal of somebody having an essence, an inherent being that is inherently bad. And then I do not consider that I'm related to him, that I am interdependent with that person, that that person is just me with a different history. His mind is fundamentally, essentially the same as mine. He's just had different experiences which have caused him to do what he's done. And that thought, that's very deep, to be able to really take that on board. It's very difficult to do, very challenging, yeah. But it's there. I think we can see the connection between the compassion and the emptiness. I think that's quite important. And that's the difference between compassion and pity is based on that, isn't it?
I think one way you can do it with the news, and you're saying like you, Bob, I sometimes say let's just not watch it the next time.
Yeah,
it comes around.
I don't watch it very much.
You've seen it at 6. You've seen it. It's 10 o'clock, and it's so easy to, let's just turn it off, which we did yesterday because it was just one story too many of.
Yeah.
This is. You just end up feeling helpless and, like you say, depressed.
Yeah.
But when there was a particular story about the amount of refugee children, young teenage boys. Well, how many 200,000 this year who've come over without parents, either because they've died or been sent. And then it was showing people on the boats, and it was showing how the people that were supposed to be helping them across are actually also involved in the opposite. It was double-edged. Anyway, it was all of that. And there was just an image of the father and this little boy, and the little boy was sleeping. And very easy to sort of distinguish between pity and compassion there. If you just, the exchanging self with others, I just try and imagine that could just, like we say, just be yourself.
Yeah.
And so I try and do it that way. If I'm feeling up to it. So you can only do it, you can't do it with everything that hits you.
I think that's right. You
It's
kind of
just
need to be
overwhelming.
selective.
Yes, and that's what I found with these young boys who I saw, not much younger than my son, combined with the image of the father and the little boy, and what they were faced with as they were surrounded by these guys with guns and turned around to go back again, even though they'd actually made some money out of them already. And I just said to my husband, I said, you could have so easily been us there.
Yeah.
And that, to me, stops you falling into the pity bit and being detached.
Yeah, that's the very important, as I say, it's like to identify with
so that's what I try and do with the news where I can.
I think we can only do it a small bit at a time because otherwise, because if you do that, you can kind of create an authentic sense of connection. But if you just get flooded by it and overwhelmed by it,
It's too much.
and it just baffles me that people find it sort of de rigueur when as soon as they come in from work and you're tired and stressed and you watch the news. Why would you do that?
Well, they're now claiming, aren't they, a lot of psychiatrists, that it's the source of a great deal of depression in people.
Well, surprise, surprise!
People who are actually addicted to news and they've got a constant feed. I mean, you only need to turn your iPhone on, haven't you, or any phone, and you have flashed up. Now there's I suppose because you updated it gives you that, and the stories it tends to give you are the ones that are just factual, but they give you a headline that's ambiguous. It makes you think it's one thing, you open it and it's something else, and it tends to be. Do you notice it's drawing you into the negative side of a story, if you like? You're not being very clear, but
We have to be very careful.
you do. I think
with
you
what
do.
we put
You've got
into
a
our
point, Bob,
minds.
with it.
Cheers, Ray.
There's something I try to do every now and then, maybe to be helpful for others. I used to have a very strong addiction to news. Kind of strong. So now I try to don't watch any TV. And go for some good websites where you find news. And do it in specific times of the day,
Yeah.
Yeah.
either the morning or the evening or both, but
Not immediately.
not immediately, not every,
Yeah. Not at
and
random,
then
yeah.
trying to do it slowly
Yeah.
as a meditation on compassion.
Mhm. Yeah.
Radio is often better than TV as well.
Yeah, could be. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I personally prefer the website or a newspaper, something where I can select
Yeah.
the pace.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in that way, we can relate to some of these bigger issues with the same sort of quality that we bring to an immediate situation with somebody, But once we start to drown in it, we can't do that anymore. So it's the quality of the compassion that is important, isn't it? So when we start to get overwhelmed by it, it's time to
Helpful.
give ourselves a bit of a break. Okay.
It's a bit mad, really. Isn't it? It's a lot easier to be compassionate and commit random acts of kindness to animals and creatures than it is to humans. Sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes it is, yes, indeed. Yeah, because humans are rather complicated.
Mhm.
They answer you back.
Huh?
They answer you back.
They answer you back, yeah, they do all sorts of things.
What are you doing that for?
They manifest ingratitude, which animals usually don't. Although wasps might seem to be ungrateful at times, I guess that's quite possible, isn't it?
Well, they didn't sting.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't sting.
It's like the bees that attacked my dog last week.
Yeah.
I still let them out of the window. Didn't squish them.
Fishing wasps are the bog, that is compassion. I have to say.
There was nothing good, nothing like, untoward. I was just like, oh man, this is really harsh. He was fine then. Him and all his mates.
Okay, well, that was a very interesting discussion. It was meant to be about meditating on compassion, but we can talk about that another time. Adam did say something about it, and that was very useful. Yeah.
I have a question, Dave, if I can
Yes.
squeeze it in.
Yeah.
Have you got the book there from, the free one we got from...
Yeah, from
Dad Green.
I haven't got that here, but
No.
tell me, what's the question?
Reviewing, as I was reviewing reading, the training in Bodhicitta.
Mhm.
I'll just read this out. If you could just say a few words about it.
Okay.
View all phenomena like a dream.
Yeah.
Investigate the nature of the unborn mind.
Mhm.
Liberate also the antidote into its natural state.
Right.
Place the nature of the path within the universal mind basis. In between, this is a bit I would like some clarification on. In between sessions, be a fictional person.
Right, okay.
Blame the one for everything, and then it's like meditate on the great kindness of all.
Right. So, in between the meditation
be
sessions,
a fictional
be a
person.
fictional person. So the translation in this text is, in the meditation break, be a creator of illusion. So that translation strikes me as a little bit strange. You've got two different translations there. I mean, in this text, the way it's translated in this text and the way it's explained is that if you're meditating on emptiness, especially if you have, good realization, then at that time nothing appears to your mind except emptiness. If you have a direct realization of emptiness, nothing appears to your mind except emptiness. Then when you arise from the meditation, there's everything, conventional reality reappears. So during that time between the meditation sessions, how should you view all these things?
Phenomena.
Yeah.
As illusory because there is no inherent existence.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, get that.
So in this translation, be a creator of illusion. it's an odd way of putting it, but another thing that we can say is that in a sense, you are creating the illusion. It's your mind that is creating everything, actually.
Yeah.
So I think it might be more on track to say, recognise that you are a creator of illusion rather than sort of.
Right. So in between sessions, be a fictional person. Be a fictional person because
I can't.
It's not because you can blame that person then for seeing things in an incorrect view. Is that
no, I don't. I mean, I can't really sort of see into what was in the mind of the translator. But what does the commentary say though in that text? Though, because there's a commentary on that line, isn't there?
What in the book?
Yeah.
I'll pass it over there.
Yeah. I'll have a look and see, because if they've translated it that way, hopefully the commentary should.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. It's a bit of maybe a type of translation that's not really.
I think the other translation is a little bit better, but let's see if we get. Unfortunately, it's not so much of a line by line
I don't think it translates that bit.
in the commentary.
I don't think it does, because it goes more into the bodhicitta as opposed to emptiness.
This one he's swapped it round, hasn't he?
Yeah.
So what about the next section then? Is it?
I couldn't find it.
Strange sufferers. Oh right, okay. Is it towards the end? You may have taught it at the end as. Because in a way all of the rest is conventional bodhicitta, so has he taught the ultimate bodhicitta at the end?
It seems to not do, because I went through the book to see if I could find it after we spoke that time.
Right,
and I couldn't
so there's
find it.
he hasn't commented on that section.
No, I think he says at the beginning of that chapter on bodhicitta that there's two different ways of doing it, presenting it, and he was going to focus on this.
Yes, so
I'm going to follow therefore.
it sometimes happens, yes, that
page 29 he explains.
that they say they leave the teaching on emptiness till the last, and then they don't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, not because they're kind of being a bit sloppy, but because for whatever reason they think that they don't always, their lamas don't always feel that it's beneficial to teach on emptiness, actually.
Yeah. So that first first paragraph at the top of page 29, he explains why he's doing it this way round, and then you think it's going to come towards the end and it doesn't. Like,
I'm going to follow therefore the sequence outlined in the Lamrim. We're going to first talk about conventional bodhicitta and only later about ultimate bodhicitta, and then he doesn't talk about it.
maybe that's the next book.
It could be that he'll come back to wherever it was taught and finish it off. That's possible, but so we don't have an answer to the question about the translation. So quite honestly, I think we can take the other translation as more illuminating, I feel. I mean, I could speculate about how you could interpret that, but it's not in the
Well, that's
not
what
in the Tibetan. It's only in the English translation, so we can ignore it. And if the other if it makes more sense in the other translation, I would just stick with that, because I don't know what the original Tibetan is. I'm afraid not doing it.
Put that on the back burner then.
Put it on the back burner until I've learned Tibetan, or until Nagara Rinpoche comes back and teaches it. Hello, welcome.
Hello.
Did you have to wait? Or did
No, I didn't.
Oh, right.
Well, that was quite good timing, because I'm just about to start the teaching. Had some meditation and some discussion, but I'm going to start. Moving on. to the next line.
What page are we on now, please?
In this edition, page 89, where it says, meditate on the great kindness of all. Having previously said, banish the one object of every blame. And I think that kind of has to come first, because unless we are able to kind of see the point, how even the people that we don't like are being kind to us, then we have a problem with this. What we're being kind of advised to do is, whatever situation we're in, however another person is kind of behaving towards us, to see them as being depthlessly kind. So, okay, there's obvious difficulties with that. But let's just park that, all the objections and questions, for a moment, and think about what kind of difference might it make? What might life be like if we were able to do that? If we were able to always see others as kind. And take a moment or two to reflect on that. Would that change your experience? Or is that your experience already, perhaps? No.
Not very much.
No. So try to imagine it, if every situation you went in, and anything everybody did, you were able to be really grateful. How wonderful.
I think in our current mindsets we would feel as though we were potentially being walked all over. That's how we've been, I suppose.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
No, but we would. That's
great.
So we automatically do the opposite, don't we? Do you know what I mean? It is almost like that person's getting away with treating me like that.
Why can't you rejoice in that?
I'm trying. I'm using a couple of examples and I'm trying, but it's not easy. So.
Thank you for being my teacher.
Yeah.
Thank you for being my teacher.
Maybe you should sort of say
This is it. That's it in one book. Because anything that anybody,
Yes.
presents you with, you
Always
can
say
always say that,
Yeah.
can't you?
Yeah, just mentally think
And
of what
that's
you said.
that's fine if you've got the mindset to deal with
And
it.
remember to do it.
Yeah.
Because it
That
happens
is-
like that.
Yeah.
That is work in progress.
So what I'm saying is, immediately all these questions come up. But let's park them. Let's put them to one side for a second and try to imagine if you could do it. If you could, and whatever comes up, you could feel grateful.
You get to the end of the day as relaxed as you started it, wouldn't you, really?
That's a good one, Lindsay. Thank you.
Mentally, rather than being like coiled up
How
spring
about
by
that?
the time you get home.
Yeah.
You would be hopefully as positive as
That would
you
be nice,
started.
wouldn't it?
It would be great.
Every day will be a good day.
Every bit, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we're getting now we're cooking. Yeah. Any other thoughts?
I mean, I think
Like
you
that.
start every day hoping that that's going to happen.
Yeah.
You start off thinking, let's hope it goes that way
Mm.
today. But things push.
What
buttons.
else?
I think a little curveball there
Yeah.
is for as Dharma practitioners, trying to be Dharma practitioners
Mhm.
and applying all these things in our daily life.
Mm.
Sometimes it's difficult when you're with someone
Mhm.
or you're with your partner
Mhm.
who doesn't quite view things as
Yeah.
you do, and you react to a situation
Yeah.
with a certain circumstance,
Mm.
with a certain attitude,
Mhm.
Mm.
and it's like, well, and it's
It is easier when you're on
It's-
your own, yeah.
yeah. You see what I'm saying? It's sometimes it's
Yeah.
difficult to apply your
It is.
Dharma practice
Mhm.
by also accommodating the other
Yeah,
person's
yeah.
feelings that you're with.
Yeah. So we know that it's difficult. But that wasn't the question.
No.
No. Mere observation, Dave.
Because that's always what comes up is the difficulties. I want to I'm trying to leapfrog that
Yeah.
to give us a
I'm just
taste.
putting blockers
And I
in
think
there.
that was a great one from Lindsay. you end the day as relaxed as you started. But what else would, think about what else would that bring into your life if you could do it, if you could just brush the difficulties aside and imagine yourself into that.
I don't know, I think I'd be quite happy imagining.
Probably.
Like everything's going so well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You sleep better.
Sleep better. Okay. Any more?
You'd be completely calm.
Completely calm. How about that?
You have space in your mind for more positive thoughts. You just end up filling them with all the negative ones you end up with. So, your mind wouldn't be so tight.
It's beginning to sound like it might not be such a stupid idea. So, this is really of the essence. This is the heart of the matter. And I think, Bob, you put it really well. That it's like there's all sorts of different lines from these mind training teachings, that give you advice on how you can do it. But if you can remember that one, it'll fit in any situation, won't it? Whatever anybody comes up with, you can always, thank you for being my teacher. You've learned something. You've created a new situation in which to find a way to, relate positively. So that person has already given you that. So the text says here, if we train our mind to recognize the great kindness of all sentient beings, and notice he doesn't say, fool yourself into believing that all sentient beings are kind. Recognize the great kindness. They are. This is, as it says actually at the end of the previous paragraph about, where he's given an example of how when people present you with something with a difficulty or they harm you, that they are helping you to use up your past negative karma. So this is, and not only that, but that then it's gone. But also, the suffering was far less than if that karma is allowed to continue to fester. Never think this is a pleasing or euphemistic way of interpreting events, but this is the actual way things are. Okay, and he's saying it again here. We train our mind to recognize the great kindness of all sentient beings. So although at the moment it feels like we're trying to play some kind of game, but he's saying no, it's more than that. Actually, if we are able to go along this path and we are able to do the practice and get used to seeing, looking for kindness from in the actions of others, rather than looking for what's wrong, we'll recognize that that is the reality. So he says, if we train our mind to recognize great kindness of all sentient beings, then despite any physical discomforts, we shall always be joyful and happy, both mentally and spiritually. Right, which was all. You said that. No, somebody said, be happy all the time. You said that, yeah. About being happy, yeah. Interesting comment here from Geshe Rabten, is it? So, for example, imagine the case of two people, one whose thoughts are transformed in this way and another whose outlook is very worldly. So when we talk about a worldly outlook there, he means that the usual way of looking at it, the people that are nice and kind to me, they're all right and I'm going to help them, and the ones who do the other stuff, then they're the enemies and I'm going to pay them back in kind. It's a worldly attitude. So imagine two people, one who's practiced the thought transformation, so you're viewing all sentient beings as kind. The other one who's that discriminating mind that's actually, coming back to what we said before, is seeing others as separate and different, isn't it? And therefore some good, some bad, some nothing. If both of these beings are in hospital suffering from similar severe illnesses, the one with the well-trained mind can be mentally joyful and may even find the strength of mind to overcome his physical suffering, while the other who has not changed his self-oriented outlook suffers both physically and mentally. This in turn makes the physical pain greater, so that there is no peace of mind at all, and maybe less chance to actually heal. There's quite a bit of research on this about, that positive states of mind have a dramatic effect on the body's ability to heal itself. So what's interesting is that although, that's very logical, isn't it? We all recognise that if we could put to one side all of the questions and objections, doubts, and think about what it would actually, would it be good or bad to have that attitude? It's perfectly obvious. We can see that to be able to see things in that way is hugely beneficial to us. But we don't want to do it. There's a resistance. That's not all right, Which is the self-cherishing mind reacting against that. It doesn't like it. And underneath that self-cherishing is the self-grasping, the view of the self as inherently other and different. Okay. So that's why there are all of these, lines of advice and verses and sayings in the mind training, helping us to see everything from just a slightly different angle, to recognise the kindness of others. So we depend on others for absolutely everything, don't we? Anything we don't depend on others for? Anybody got any examples? Something where we don't think so. So that, although it isn't how people normally think, it's fairly straightforward to see that everything, our nutrition, our health, our education, even the very fact of having a physical body has been given us by somebody else, all of these things have been given us by others. But the idea that we ought to actually, feel gratitude for all those things is quite remote from most people's way of looking at life, I think, most of the time. That we should feel gratitude for some things, but absolutely everything and absolutely everybody we should feel grateful towards. That's a bit radical, isn't it? But we start thinking about it, we start thinking about, how many people were involved in us being able to have this book. There's the people that made the paper, the people that made the ink, the person that wrote the book, the person that edited, the Geshe Rabdin who gave the teachings, the person who recorded them and transcribed them, the person that invented writing. Yeah, where does it stop? Nowhere. Millions and millions and millions of people have had to do things for me to be able to have this book. And in fact, if you think about it, it's everybody, isn't it? Because what about the people that produced the food that those people had to eat in order to be able to write the book? Everybody. All sentient beings. Even the bees and wasps as well. So we need everybody. But we still don't feel grateful to the people that do the things we don't like. But actually we depend on them as well. Yeah? To develop patience, I depend on somebody to make me angry. If nobody ever made me angry, I would never be able to practice patience. And so on. So if we look with that orientation, if this is what we're looking for, if you're looking for the kindness of others, that's what you'll find. You'll find, and the word kindness. It's not that there's a Tibetan word has another meaning, but it's a different way of thinking. That they're not thinking about, that somebody's not doesn't to be thought of as kind. Somebody doesn't have to have an emotion of kind of love towards me. If whoever produces my food is not thinking about me, but nevertheless, the fact they've produced that kind of food, I've been able to eat it. For me to not think that person is kind is actually cockeyed. It's got nothing to, I still benefit. I still have reason to be grateful to them. So I paid for it. Yeah. So there is this ideology around, isn't there, that, you know, we want to be independent. We want to be like the guy in the Marlboro advert, you know, riding on the horse, smoking a cigarette, going out across the desert, and depending on nobody. It's a great American pioneer ideal, isn't it? But it's a complete fantasy. That person is as dependent on other people as anybody else. That's what the ego wants to feel, that it's independent, owes nothing to nobody. But actually we owe everything to everybody.
So if I'm depending on everyone, does that mean everyone is depending on me in some way?
Yes. Everyone depends on you too. Yeah.
Okay.
And so that's a great reason to, you know, practice bodhicitta, isn't it? Because everyone's depending on me. Whoa. Then what I do matters, you know. It's very important. Yeah. Absolutely. My happiness depends totally on others, on everyone else. Everyone else's happiness depends totally on me. This is Lama Zopa is very fond of saying. They're all suffering. Who's going to help them? So meditate on the great kindness of all, because it will make you happy, and you will be motivated to make others happy, and then you will make them happy, and that will make you happy. Okay? So positive feedback, isn't it? So although at present we do not have the ability to reach and benefit all beings, it is our responsibility to develop our minds so that we completely change the self-cherishing attitude into one of helping and cherishing others. In order to do this, we must be aware that all Mother Sentient Beings have been most kind to us and are in true need of help. We must therefore look closely at all others and understand what they wish to have and what they wish to avoid. This is simple. All beings desire happiness and wish to avoid suffering. So then what shall we do? And the next line says, practice a combination of both giving and taking. All beings desire happiness, wish to avoid suffering, so what we want to do is to take from them what they do not want and give them what they need. Take away the suffering and give them the happiness. In Tibetan, Tonglen. Taking, suffering and giving. Giving and taking. Yes, so presumably, not knowing Tibetan very well, excuse me. Tong is giving and Len is taking. But however, during the actual meditation practice, it's said that taking comes first, followed by giving. We must first accept all the miseries and impurities from sentient beings upon ourselves, because only then will they be in a position to enjoy the happiness and merit we give them as replacement. Okay. So if you ever wonder why, there's more emphasis, compassion and loving kindness are kind of like two sides of the same coin, aren't they? So compassion is wanting sentient beings to be free from suffering. It's a little bit more than that, actually. It's often defined as wanting them to be free from suffering, but it's a bit more than that. It's actually an intention. Compassion. It's a bit more than wouldn't it be nice if they were free from suffering. It's what can I do about it? It's genuine compassion. And loving kindness is wanting them to be happy. So if you ever wonder why there's more emphasis on the compassion than on the loving kindness, that's the reason, because in order to be able to experience happiness, you first have to kind of remove the suffering. Yeah? That's just kind of a priority, is removing the suffering. This is like first cleaning a dirty pot before placing food in it. Yeah, it makes sense. I think you can't try to give them the happiness when they're kind of got all these problems and suffering. It is not going to work. So this is where it gets challenging, isn't it? When we talked about this, it's this meditation it's not an easy meditation. It's not an easy idea, taking on others' suffering. So, we might spend a bit of time on this one. Because it is, it's not a peripheral matter, this meditation. This meditation is right, at the heart of the thing. It's absolutely central. So the difficulties that we have with it are to do with the difficulties that we have with bodhicitta. It's not just that. I used to think the meditation technique itself was kind of a bit. I wasn't sure about it, But now I'm not. Now I tend to think that it's the fact that bodhicitta itself is difficult. So I think it's helpful to maybe approach it step by step. So in the beginning, we kind of visualize someone that we know who's suffering, and to get in touch with, I really want that person to not have to experience that suffering. So we can do that much. Certainly, if it's someone close to us particularly, it's not difficult to get in touch with that strong feeling that, if only I could remove that suffering, I could take it away. So initially we can do it, I think, to start with, it's like almost consciously avoid the thought that by taking their suffering, I'm going to be suffering. Just think of it as I'm just taking this suffering away from them. Yeah? Because the resistance is, I don't want to be bringing suffering on myself. That's not okay. So that's where the problems arise. So we don't have to do that initially. You don't have to think like that. You can start by thinking, all I'm doing is like a doctor. There's some poison in the body. I'm going to take it out. Or when somebody has a snake bite, you suck the poison out. You can do that. You're not going to swallow the poison, but you can you take it out of their body. So maybe start that way, and then you don't have the resistance. You don't think about by taking this suffering, it's going to make me suffer. And I think it might be useful to work with that level of it for quite a long time, perhaps, to get really kind of get really kind of used to that. Because we do want the other person to be free from suffering. There's all sorts of anxieties come up around. Well, what about, I don't want to suffer. And in fact, I think there's more, when we get to that level of actually, because I think I actually was doing it that way myself for quite a while and thinking, oh, that's the right way to do it, of course. Then I began to realise, no, wait a minute, actually it does mean, it is about connecting with the thought that if I had to choose between that person having suffering and me having it, I would choose me to have it. That's where it gets very challenging. But we're still very familiar with that, you know. I mean, with people that are close to us, particularly if you're your child, you would have that thought, wouldn't you? Somebody told quite a moving story about, you know, when he was about 8 years old, maybe younger, maybe 6, I don't know, and he was having to go to the dentist, and he was really scared of the dentist, hated the dentist. And his father was with me, sat down next to me and said, "Son, if I could go for you, I would. You know, I would have this suffering." Of course, as an adult, you'd suffer less than the child would. But even if you were to see the same amount of suffering, or even more, you'd still do it, wouldn't you? So there are situations where we would choose to have the suffering rather than the other person have it. So now the question is, in that case, would you be losing out? No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't for a moment think, I'm losing out here by taking this suffering. If you were able to do it, and there are situations where you can, you know, where you can actually make that choice, and you wouldn't hesitate. If it's someone who has that close connection to you, if it's a stranger, it might be more difficult, or somebody that you have a big problem with. But then here the premise is like that those discriminations are not based on anything valid, you know. So once again, we can think about, well, what if, supposing I could put those difficulties to one side, what would it be like? If I had that ability to be able to feel that compassion towards everyone that I would feel to my own child, and that therefore in a situation where I could take someone's suffering, I would do it, would that be an awful kind of life to have? Do you think? You see, you're all thinking deeply here.
I don't think it'd be awful if you had the motivation to do it.
No, I'm saying if you had.
Oh, right.
If you had the motivation.
I don't know, like, what would you do if you felt that way as you walked past someone who was homeless on the street in these? Would you, I don't know.
That's a good question.
Would you ask them to take your keys so you can sleep in their sleeping bag and they can have your house?
I wonder what you would do. Because, I mean, in that example, to actually do that might not be the most beneficial thing.
Okay.
So there has to be some skill there. But to be willing to make that kind of exchange. I mean, some people do. You know, give away everything to people.
Oh, so it's about remembering that it's not just like literally taking on their suffering, but it's also about looking into the causes of that suffering, isn't it?
Well, to take away someone's suffering is sometimes more difficult than it appears at first sight. You know, so to you know, the person the homeless person on the street, you give them 100 quid, you might not have reduced their suffering at all. You know, you might have made it worse. So, I think, nevertheless, you know, I think about it constantly when I'm going down the Ball Lane or wherever. There's these people in the alleyways, and sometimes I give something, sometimes I stop and talk to them. Sometimes I give them something and I wish I hadn't, because I don't think I've made a positive difference. I've probably made a negative difference. Sometimes I talk to them and it's been a complete waste of time. You know? And sometimes it doesn't feel like that at all. Sometimes it feels very worthwhile. And some people, seeing that, they decide to dedicate their lives to helping homeless people. So if you thought about it that way, I think about that a lot actually. Am I doing the best thing, trying to stop climate change? Maybe I should be, working with homeless people. These things are very difficult in terms of what actually, in practice, does give the most help. So, but here we're not exactly talking about that question, the practicalities of how to do it, which is quite difficult. And in a way, the only answer that you can give is you have to develop wisdom, because you have to see the specific situation. You can't really have a handbook and read in the book and go, oh well, this person is homeless, but he's not an alcoholic, and therefore, so I can give him some money. It doesn't work like that. We need to have wisdom to be able, the insight to be able to see what that person really needs right now. And to do that, we have to train our minds. So we're not talking about so much the practical details of how we do it, but we're talking about, how we train our mind to develop the kind of, because if we do have the right inner attitude, if we have genuine, spontaneous compassion, non-discriminating compassion, then we will act in a way that is beneficial. That's almost guaranteed, Especially, and if we have compassion and wisdom, it is guaranteed. Whatever we do will be beneficial. But part of that is that we would have to be willing to make sacrifices, to experience some difficulties and hardship in order to help others. And so my question was, if that was the case, would your life be better or worse?
More meaningful, wouldn't it? More meaningful.
Very meaningful.
Yeah.
Yeah, very meaningful. So although, on a material level, you might experience some hardship and some difficulty, whatever, but on a mental, spiritual level, that would be far outweighed by the satisfaction, the reward. There's no more sort of pure kind of satisfaction than that, is there? So this is challenging stuff, because our habit of looking after me is very, very deeply ingrained. And of course, we do have to, in a practical way, look after ourselves. I mean, there is this a nice phrase that Tibetans talk about: idiot compassion. Where you just throw away yourself for very little benefit to somebody else. That is not what we're talking about here. It's not what we're talking about here. And in fact, it's not necessarily the case that to live out that mind that is willing to give everything to others and to take suffering, you might find that when you see, well, this is actually the most beneficial thing for me to do, it might be something that's actually quite nice. It's not that you necessarily are going to suffer, but it is, if your scale of values is you'd be willing to, for the sake of others, then that will lead your life in a certain direction. It will motivate certain kinds of actions which will benefit others. And some of the time you might have to experience some hardship, some of the time you might not. But at the end of that, through giving up attachment to the sort of more obvious kind of material comfort and well-being, you experience something much deeper and more positive. So of course, it's totally relative to your situation. If you have, family, kids to look after, you can't just suddenly decide, well, I'm going to go off to India and help homeless lepers, We have to take into account our own karmic circumstances. So it is about an inner change. It's not about a specific outer action, but it's about, looking at what would happen if I was to open my heart in that way, and to be less concerned about sort of protecting my own sort of material comfort.
I think you'd be less scared, I guess.
Yes, you would.
I was thinking about it.
Yeah.
Like being able to be okay with someone's anger.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Sure.
how that's causing them problems. And being able to, if you take on this mind, you'd be.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. You would be less scared anyway because you're kind of letting go of that protection of yourself, but also the willingness to enter into different situations. You would you give up the habit of protecting yourself and wrapping yourself in cotton wool, then you rapidly become less scared because you experience what it's like to be willing to kind of confront the world. Yeah, I think it would reduce fear. It'd have lots of consequences. And by the way, I mean, I'm sure that you're all doing this. I'm not because I'm talking about it as if you're not doing it. But we all can go a stage further, can't we? We're on a journey towards this sort of image that's there in the distance of the Bodhisattva, the person whose life is totally dedicated to others. And as to my observation, somebody like Lama Zopa, where is he? Oh, there, isn't he? Yeah. I mean, it kind of shines out a mile. Every moment of his life is totally for others. And he would go through any suffering to help others. So it is possible. It's real. I recently read there's a book which is a biography of Lama Zopa and his previous incarnation. And it seems fairly clear from that it was during his previous life that he developed bodhicitta, for the first time. So reading that was quite inspirational in a way because these reincarnate lamas, you kind of think, well, they're sort of from another planet, they're these high beings, but reading that, this is how he developed bodhicitta himself in his previous life from being fairly ordinary, so okay, so that is possible. So we're all somewhere on that continuum, from being a selfish git to being a bodhisattva. Somewhere along that line. It doesn't really matter, we're all on the same journey. And if we recognise that, then we can be less sort of disdainful of the selfish gits, because that was just me a short while ago. I think that's enough for this evening. Any questions before we do a little bit of meditation? Okay, that's how we go. We started a bit late. Is it okay if we finish a little bit late? Because I've talked too long. Maybe the right length of time if we'd started on time. So take a few minutes to settle into a good meditation posture and allow the mind and body to settle. And bring to mind someone that you know who is suffering. Probably someone close to you, someone you feel a strong connection with, who is going through some really difficult time. Might be physical suffering, illness, or some very difficult emotional situation, anxious situation, bereavement, depression. And visualize that person seated in front of you right now. A strong, vivid sense of their actual presence in front of you. And vividly imagine that suffering. How difficult that is, how much pain they're going through. And imagine that suffering in the form of a mass of dense black smoke in the centre of their body. Think about how dearly you would like them to be free of that suffering. Imagine that you've been given power to take it from them. And so as you breathe in, visualize drawing, with your breath, drawing out that dense black smoke. Leaves their body, enters your body, goes down into your heart. As it reaches your heart, it reaches the dense black mass of your own self-cherishing mind, totally destroys it. Again, taking in a long breath, breathing in that dark black smoke, feel that it's leaving their body, you're drawing it out of them, going down into your own heart. You have freed them from that suffering, and that dark smoke, as it goes down into your heart, explodes your self-cherishing mind. Continue visualizing in this way for a few moments. Each time that you breathe in, feel very clear that there is less of that dark smoke within their body. You are actually taking it out of them. Keep doing the meditation. So for you, this dark smoke is like medicine. It is destroying the disease of your self-cherishing mind. Now you have almost completely emptied their body of the suffering. Continue meditating for a little longer. And then with the next breath, feel you are drawing out the last of that suffering. You free them from it completely. And now as you breathe out, visualize your own happiness leaving your body in the form of fine white smoke, entering and filling their body, filling them with happiness and joy, peace and well-being. And try to generate a sense that this is really happening, as indeed perhaps it is. Feel this person coming back to life, being filled with joy, laughter, and well-being and happiness. As you give them all of your happiness and well-being. Just take a moment to rejoice. Now we can turn our attention to another person, or more than one, or group of people. Do the same meditation and just gradually expand that vision, beginning by taking the suffering, as many or as few beings as you wish. Visualize them in front of you. Call to mind what they might be suffering Visualize it as dark smoke, and visualize breathing it in, down into your heart, destroying your self-cherishing. And begin to expand your vision to include more beings. Expand it as far as it will go to the ends of the universe. Visualize breathing in, taking the suffering of all sentient beings. And feel that you have succeeded in taking away all of their suffering. And as you breathe out your happiness and well-being into all of them. Feel that you're filling them with happiness, peace, well-being, and health. And feel that you have filled all of these infinite sentient beings with perfect peace, with the highest bliss, full enlightenment. And feel great joy. meditation prayers. 22. Chan Chum Sam Chum Rinpoche Ma Ke Panam Ke Gyochi Ke Wanyam Pame Payan Kone Kong Tu Kawajo Ke Wadi Nyoruda Lama I see we've got some programs. Halfway through the term, we've got the program for this term. So what have we got? Anything good coming up? Geshitashi next weekend, isn't it?
Hey, do you think that's okay to go to if you haven't been to the other? Is it part of a set or that?
I think that it's okay to go, Charlotte. I mean, he will be talking about stuff that refers back, but a lot of the time he's just talking on a quite general level. So I've been to odd ones here and there, and there are bits where you might miss a bit, but I think it would be definitely beneficial to go. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And shortly after that, we have Venerable Amy. Choosing kindness, empathy and empowerment in challenging times. That's very relevant, isn't it? Very good. Okay, thank you.
A couple of quick questions.
Yes, a question.
On this meditation. So sometimes I was doing it taking first, and then taking and giving.
Yes.